Good morning, Nova Nation. Happy Thursday and welcome inside of our WXVU studio for the final edition of Villanova Sports Talk as a student. A bittersweet morning, as you might be able to tell. I am a little under the weather with my allergies, but ready to go for a full episode today. David Szczepanski, Stephen Cain, Ryan Scanlon with you guys. How are you? Finals week is here. How's everybody holding up?
Doing pretty good. Again, as you said, David, pretty bittersweet final Villanova Sports Talk episode, but excited to get it going. A lot to get to today.
I'm doing pretty good. I just have one final left that's due on the 12th, so a little bit of procrastination here and there. But other than that, ready for our last WXVU segment of our college careers.
We're ready to get to it. We have two poll questions for you on my Twitter at WXVU David S. First poll question, which offseason edition are you most excited to watch this upcoming men's basketball season? Jake Fegan, Kwame Evans, Daryl Simmons, Buddy Simmons, or Elijah Crawford / Devin Royal in one option there. Twitter only allows me to put 4 options, so that's why I did that. Poll question 2, how many wins will Villanova football have next season? 10-12, 7-9, 3-6, or 0-2? We'll talk about that coming up. Of course, Ryan Fannon will join the show at 11:30 a.m. We'll talk about everything Villanova football, Villanova men's basketball. He emceed the banquet the other day for Nova football, so we'll talk about that and much more coming up in just a little bit. So, guys, we'll first get started with men's basketball, just where everything stands. We'll do a quick kind of recap of both men's and women's basketball. Really no new news from the last time Stephen and I talked last Thursday. I guess the main update was that Buddy Simmons was officially signed yesterday as a Villanova Wildcat, so that was kind of the latest news, but that was already broken a little bit more than a week ago. So again, where things stand in the transfer portal, the subtractions for Villanova: Caden Lewis, Braden Pierce, Bryce Lindsey, Zion Stanford, and Defar Gapari. Lewis transferred to Miami. His name is still in the NBA draft portal, so there's a chance that he could actually declare for the draft and go through with that process. We'll see what happens. Bryce Lindsey transferred to Indiana. Braden Pierce to the College of Charleston. Zion Stanford, a Towson. That was announced about 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, but that was officially posted on Zion's Instagram yesterday. Tafari Gapari is in the transfer portal, is not transferred to a new school yet. Nico Onyekwe is back. Malcolm Flaggs, Malachi Palmer, Chris Jeffrey, and Duke Brennan and Devin Askew are also in the transfer portal, so those are the 5 players in the portal. Palmer actually committed the other day to Minnesota, so you can take his name out of that list. So again, Flaggs, Jeffrey, Brennan, and Askew are the 4 that are either in the transfer portal or waiting for a potential 5th year, both Brennan and Askew. Onyekwe is back, as too for Matthew Hodge and Tyler Perkins. And then the portal additions for Villanova: Devin Royal, Jake Fegan, Kwame Evans Jr., Elijah Crawford, and Daryl Simmons. And Adam Omidak is the lone recruit for Villanova heading in to this season. So guys, want to get your thoughts. Steve, I know we talked about it the last couple weeks, but overall, still, when you look at the rankings on social media, still, atop the transfer portal rankings in all of college basketball.
They've done a really good job. Again, the kind of we'll say final at this point. I know that there could still be some upcoming moves across the country with certain international players, but it is May. We've passed April. A lot of the transfer portal moves are done, so I don't know if this ranking will fluctuate that much. But Villanova is 17th in the whole country in terms of their transfer portal rankings. Again, grading how they did in terms of landing on certain prospects, filling for certain needs. And again, if you look at some of the players that they got, it makes a lot of sense, right? Kwame Evans Jr., I think you could argue could be the best player for Villanova in a year's time, just because of his ability to just be physical on the inside, great offensively and defensively, can block shots, can rebound. Again, is a very solid defender, especially at not over fouling, and again, just very versatile as a defender. He's a former 5-star recruit. So he's kind of the big name. There's obviously been a lot of other great additions as well with Devin Royal and Jake Fegan, and then obviously Crawford and Simmons. And Crawford and Simmons kind of fit that mold of Villanova just operating a lot out of ball screens. Crawford being in particular just one of the best assist men in the whole country. And then Simmons kind of being somebody that can work off of Crawford at times, or kind of be that sixth man, that backup point guard off the bench, and then Fegan just a high volume three-point shooter, somebody that may need to improve defensively. But there's just a lot of good pieces. And then you have obviously Tyler Perkins coming back, who had a career year, and then of course Matt Hodge. We'll see how he does coming off the ACL tear, and maybe he starts off the bench, and then maybe he competes with Royal or Evans, depending on how Villanova does with the center. But again, to sum it all up, it's been a very solid transfer portal for the Cats and really for the whole Big East as a whole. So pretty excited to see how it all works out in a few months.
For what it's worth, right? The top 20 transfer portal after basically losing your whole roster, to be where we are, standing a week before graduation in our eyes in May, is, I think, ahead of schedule in terms of what a transfer portal has given a lot of teams. You look at someone that takes over a whole program just a year ago, brings in a lot of guys, and then they just leave you. You're left with about 2 players that said they wanted to come back, so that's about 13 guys you needed to fill. And I think standing right now, you're in a lot better situation than a couple other teams, LSU to name a few. But to stand where we are right now, with the roster destruction that we have now, it allows us to look internationally. And, a Luigi type of player that will be floating around the next couple minutes, who stands at 7'3", fits that center portion if he commits to Villanova. But if you look at that roster that we have now, you look like you're in a great spot because you committed 5 guys. It means you can take a trip across the seas to go check out some international talent, which allows you grace because you know that you have a lot of foundation players that are saying yes to your program. Now it's just that time to fill what's not on our team, and that's about 5 more players as well. So 5 to 7 players down, 5 more to 7 to go. And standing here in May, it seems like it's going to be a good roster coming together come the summer months as they come to Villanova's campus as they start summer workouts.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ryan. I think the team really has shaped up nicely here in May, and I thought it was a nice bounce back this offseason for Kevin Willard, to be specific. Last year he received, I think, a lot of criticism, to be honest with you, for just the transfer portal and the way that Villanova had shaped up heading into the year. Obviously, Villanova overperformed based on the preseason expectations, but also Kevin Willard didn't have a ton of time to work with last year in the transfer portal when he took the job, left Maryland, and became Villanova's head coach. So this year I thought it was a great bounce back year for him as a recruiter and for his coaching staff. I know obviously Ashley Howard has a big part of that as well. So, but a really strong group here that are going to come in for the Wildcats heading into this upcoming campaign. And Ryan, you touched on it, Luigi Seago, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, but obviously, Steve, we talked about Luigi last week, a big international talent from Italy, and Novo Alerts did a good job of clipping his live stream from TikTok Live the other day, I believe, where he had about 7,200 people watching him, and he showed, was him holding up a Villanova sweatshirt, which I think is a pretty positive development, pretty positive motive. Now, this was also back on May 4th, 3 days ago. We're here on May 7th, and there's been relatively no news since that live stream that Luigi did. But I think it's a good sign for Villanova. I mean, that would really be, I think, significant, maybe understates how large of a signing that would be. Villanova needs some front court depth. Swigo could be headed towards the NBA. He also said in that same live stream, again, this is from Nova Alerts, that he said if he's not top 20 in the NBA draft, he's withdrawing from the draft. I doubt, at least here on May 7th, he's going to be top 20 in the draft. A lot of the projections have him in the 2nd or 3rd round. Maybe some teams take a chance on him because of his size. As Ryan mentioned, 7'3". Maybe he's in the early part of the 2nd round, but I can't see him being drafted any higher than that, to be quite honest with you. So it seemingly looks good for him to head to a college program, come over to the States, we'll see if that happens. But Villanova appears to be the front runner, and there's a lot of juice, a lot of buzz around that right now on social media.
And that's what's encouraging. People on BYU's message board, again, this is a rumor, some BYU fans writing some articles about their need at the center position, similar to Villanova. They're also going after Luigi Swigo, and I think at the end of the article they did mention kind of what you were saying, David, which is exciting for Villanova, that as of right now, as we're recording this on May 7th, it feels like Villanova's the front runner.
Feels like they're the clear front runner.
Yeah, because especially since with that live stream, let's also mention, right, he had a Villanova sweatshirt, and even watching that clip back, right, combing through the TikTok live, he didn't pull out any other sweatshirts from any other colleges, even though he's being heavily pursued by North Carolina, BYU, I think Purdue, Illinois, Indiana. They're going to go for him again because last year he visited all those campuses and seemed to like those schools before deciding to go back to the Adriatic League for one more year. So there's a lot of teams that are competing for his services, but again, it feels like Villanova is the front runner, and again, that's really the one need. And again, going back to the initial question of how Villanova did in the transfer portal, I think it's impressive that they're not even done. If they were able to land Swigo, kind of fill that last need of landing a big-time center and getting a lot more size and really completing this roster, I think that could allow for Villanova to kind of shoot up the offseason rankings. It wouldn't technically affect the transfer portal since it's an international player, not necessarily somebody you're landing from the portal, but still nonetheless, it could really help Villanova really rocket up those preseason projections. But in terms of Swigo, just what's impressive with him is his ability to stretch the floor. Ryan, you mentioned he's 7'3", but he can also knock down some threes. He can stretch the defense, and again, just has a lot of size. He's a great offensive rebounder. He has just a knack for the ball when it clanks off the rim. He's really good at that. And also as well, I think he's a good passer, and a lot of that comes from being 7'3", but again, he uses that ability just to be taller than everybody else, to see to see over smaller defenders and make the right pass. So he's more than just a big body. And again, really, maybe one of the things he could work on is some of his quickness and things like that. It makes sense that he's 7'3", but he can even step on the perimeter guard. So he really would be a game-changing player. They don't call him Italian Wemby for nothing. He really does have that potential if he fits the right system, and if he comes to Villanova, he could really be a game changer.
Well, here's something that other schools can't pitch to him: is the first game that's circled on everyone's calendar. It's played in Italy, so I think where Willard's mind is where everyone's mind is. I think if you can attract talent from Italy, their first game in a Villanova uniform is to play in front of their home country and home potential family. That's got to be such a strong point in the recruiting process, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's definitely a big recruiting chip, definitely. And I think for Villanova, again, don't necessarily know the situation as deeply for BYU and UNC, but it's clear right now that there's a real gaping hole, a true need that Villanova has at that center spot. And it also feels like, David, we talked about this I think the last few weeks. It's felt like you could say Villanova spent a decent amount for Kwame Evans Jr., maybe for Devin Royal, but you think for Jake Fegan, Elijah Crawford, Buddy Simmons, some of these names that Villanova, some of these players that Villanova has acquired, it's not like they broke the bank in terms of their NIL budget. Again, pure speculation. So it also feels like maybe they were kind of saving up to potentially get a big-time center, whether through the portal or internationally. And again, maybe they just were kind of planning this all along, that they would have enough money to attract a big-time talent like Swigo, who could be an NBA player, right? A fringe guy that could go in the second round, but maybe wants to spend another year and move to the U.S. before going to the draft. So it's exciting.
It really is. And just to break down earlier, we've talked about his NBA ranks. ESPN's Jeremy Wu ranks Swigo as number 36 overall, projecting him as the 6th pick of the second round in the NBA draft. A lot of the other projections have him closer to pick 50. So, again, I think it very much varies, especially with international talent on the site that you use. But Jeremy Woo of ESPN has him pretty much the highest, right around that 36th overall slot in the early portion of the second round. Teams that are pursuing Swigo, we've talked about it throughout the show as well. It seems like Villanova, BYU, and North Carolina are the three top programs in the lead. St. John's and Arkansas have also expressed interest, and Swigo also visited with Indiana, Illinois, and Purdue last year, so has some experience with those programs as well. It seems like Villanova and BYU are the front runners. Again, we'll keep an eye on that, of course. A big development. I think the concern, though, is even though there's a lot of attention around Swigo, it seems like Villanova's the front runner. The sweatshirt is a great thing right on TikTok Live. The concern is that if Villanova does swing and miss here at Swigo, what do you do then? I don't think Villanova has enough front court depth. We talked about this. Evans Jr., Devin Royal are both two good pieces. We'll see how Kevin Willard can, mix them up in a lineup, but you just don't have really a ton of depth off the bench. You think Hodge might come off the bench, especially to begin the season when he comes back, but really there aren't a ton of names left in the transfer portal. We mentioned a few last week as well, Steve, but really just not a ton true fives, true centers in the portal. Swigo is a big one, but there's so many teams competing with you. And Steve, you brought up the money point, which I think is a big part of it. Is Villanova definitely has some funds I think they could use to get Swigo, but can they outbid a North Carolina? Can they outbid a BYU that are also looking for a severe need in the front court? I don't know, and that's something that will have to be explored. Ryan, as you touched on, I think the Rome piece is a big part of it, him being able to play in Italy, but at the end of the day, you would have to think whoever offers him the most money is probably going to end up getting Swigo, especially considering the fact that he has NBA attention. He can make a good amount of money going in the early round of the second draft, or the early second round of the NBA draft. I think money is going to be a decent part of it as well.
It's going to be huge. And again, I think for Villanova, that's why they brought back Nico and Yekwar kind of as an insurance policy, I should say, just in case if things go horribly wrong. You don't even want to say horribly wrong necessarily for the center race, because I do think Nico and Yekwar could make a pretty big leap, and he hasn't played yet.
I don't know how much he could play.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's hard to expect him to step up as maybe the first big man off the bench, or even as playing maybe 6 minutes a night, because he didn't play at all this year.
Yeah, again, a counter I think is that he was doing pretty well in practice. He redshirted for a reason. He didn't really have any injury-related, medical redshirt kind of setback. So, again, and I think, some of his high school tape, now it is high school. Obviously, you're moving up to college, and not just college, high major basketball in the Big East. But, again, right, the numbers don't lie. Even if you price in Nico and Yekwar kind of struggling, analytic projections, you look at Evan Mia, Bart Torvik, a lot of these sites, they have Villanova's rating as a top 20, top 25 roster. Now, preseason rankings aren't always the most accurate, right? You could revisit them come November and come December and things like that and see how Villanova does in their first few non-conference games. But even in spite of that, they're still rated as a pretty highly rated team. Obviously, the transfer portal rating, being top 20 in the whole country, doing well like the rest of the Big East, I think that does mean something. But yeah, I mean, in terms of backup plans, we mentioned Favor eBay, somebody from the state of Maryland, Villanova could potentially go for. It's kind of late in that process. He would be from high school, and he would also be inexperienced. But again, that's really the key. Maybe Villanova is very confident with Swigo. Maybe there's something that could be agreed upon already. We don't necessarily know, like some sort of verbal agreement where if Swigo really hits it off in the combine, gets to that top 20 mark, he says, all right, see you guys, I'm going to the NBA. But if not, then he may have already told Villanova, hey, I'm probably coming, as long as I just want to make sure that I don't get into the top 20 for the draft. So who knows? But
yeah, I really, this is not the same story with Swigo, but it's around all these other players like Floyd Badunga, who just committed to Louisville from Kansas. He's also a name to watch in the NBA Combine. He could be drafted on that draft board, but that's just to name a few. Cain Lewis as well. If he shows up to the Combine, maybe he could go into the draft, enter the draft. All these players that are committing, they do have it's a time of uncertainty, because you don't know if you want to play another year of college basketball or you want to go to the NBA draft. But with this whole new system of the NIL for the last couple of years, you want to be sticking in college because you want the most amount of money to help you and your family out. So it's an interesting case with Swigo because he hasn't played a little bit of college basketball, just professionally in Italy, but it'd be a tremendous opportunity for him to develop his craft if he's not a top 20 and have all these potential matchups within the center-wise. Creighton has boosted their roster. Providence has boosted their roster.
DePaul looks really good.
DePaul looks really good. So if you mix in a 7'3" center guarding, defending the Finner and Pavilion, everyone here will be really happy. But of course, it's someone that's has to adjust to new, a new country, a new system, and also go to take a couple classes as well on top of that. So it would be tough for international product, but I think he's been in the system before, just because he's looked at a lot of other schools, but this is not the same case as a lot of other big men are fearing the same decision upcoming.
Well, the last time Villanova was able to sign an international talent, it was Sash Gablagov from Bulgaria a couple years ago after coming out of the NBA Global Academy. Of course, he had a great run with Santa Clara in March Madness this past year, made a name for himself, but Gablagov was really the last name for Villanova internationally, so we'll see if Swigo can add to that list coming up over the next few days. In terms of the women's basketball side of things, again, if you're just joining us, Ryan Fannon will join the program at 11:30 a.m. David Szczepanski, Stephen Cain, and Ryan Scanlon with you. Women's basketball, really no updates as well. Same thing with the men's side of things, pretty much status quo over the last week or so. Still have MD Natumbu in the transfer portal. I think it's interesting to see if maybe she comes back. I haven't heard a ton on that front. Maybe she ends up going to a mid-major program. We'll see what happens there. Anna Foley and Simone Pellish are the two major additions for Villanova in terms of the transfer portal. And then, of course, you have Elise Bender, Brooke Bender, Danny Cisaretti, Jasmine Bosco, Kelsey Jones, Kennedy Henry, Bryn McCary, and Rachel Wirtz all returning. And we didn't talk about it a ton, Steve, last week, but what you really like in that list, which is different than the men's basketball list, is just how many years of eligibility a lot of these players have remaining. Out of all those players returning, which I just named 8 names, again, the Bender sisters, Bosco, Cisaretti, Henry, Jones, McCary, and Wirtz, out of all of those players, only one of them has 1 year of eligibility remaining, and that's Kelsey Jones. Everybody else at least has 2 years of eligibility remaining, including McCary, obviously Bosco, Cisaretti, who I think could take big leaps again this season. So this is a roster that not only I think definitely has talent, top 25 talent. They're right now on the edge of that top 25 spot heading into this upcoming season, but not just this season, but they have a pretty good future aligned as well. I still think if you're Villanova, you would like to fill another spot, probably with a good front court addition. You would imagine that the Coach Dillon is working there, but in terms of the roster, the returnees, I think is a really good sign for Villanova, and this team I think is built to win heading into the 2026-27 campaign.
Certainly, with Bosco coming back, it's huge, and again, we talked about it before, the fact that she decided to come back again after another really good season. People felt that last year after she broke out onto the scene as a freshman, and then the portal came up, people thought she would enter and go to a different school. She decides to come back, and then she plays well again, and people thought, oh, well, then she's definitely going to go at this point, but then she decides to come back again, which just speaks to the quality of this coaching staff, the quality of this women's basketball program, that she feels that she feels safe in really returning, and she feels that she can continue to improve while still in a Villanova Wildcats uniform. And you mentioned Kennedy Henry, just what an addition she was as a freshman, especially defensively, being a versatile defender that could mix it up in the paint, also guard out on the perimeter. And then Bryn McCary at certain points was playing, or even sometimes helped playing Jasmine Bosco at certain points in the season. And again, you mentioned it, right? 2 years of eligibility instead of just 1, even though she'll be a senior. I'm sure that's due to her injury, right? Having the brace on her right knee. But again, that's huge. And you could argue, again, last year, I'm sure was her best season, and she could just build off of that. And of course, Brooke Bender provided a nice spark off the bench, especially with the 3-point shooting. And again, Cisaretti was making some plays coming off the bench, giving this Villanova team some different looks. And then Anna Foley as well, just being somebody that could add a little bit more size. I do agree, David, it would be nice that maybe they could get another kind of front court addition, but Anna Foley, kind of a wing guard, kind of similar to Kennedy Henry in the sense that she can guard 1 through 5, on an opposing roster with not a lot of issues. 20th in block percentage among wing guards in the country, second best assist rate among wing guards in the country. So just super solid on both of those fronts. And again, her block and steal rates are very, very solid. Again, her strength isn't necessarily scoring the basketball. Maybe she struggles a little bit with her offensive rebounding, but she doesn't turn it over. She sets up her teammates for success. She blocks shots. She steals the ball. And again, she's not the most overly aggressive defender, and I'm really excited what she'll bring. And Alexis Evers, too, from high school as well, and Simone Pellish, a nice bench addition. But really the main theme is retention, and that's something the men's team really struggled with.
Yeah, I think when you look at, our conversation at the Bone Marrow Drive, Dave, Denise Dillon was up front with us, and she wasn't holding back any sorts of secrets. The goal in mind was to keep Jasmine Bosco here for about 3 to 4 years, and she said in her press conference she wasn't backing down, telling us that Jasmine Bosco is coming back, and I felt like that's what it's all about coming to Villanova, especially if you're in the regard of Coach Dillon. Her track record, it shows what it shows. And if you're going to win at the highest level, you're going to have to play under Coach Dillon, and that's what she brings each and every day to the program, in the practice court, behind the scenes. And even when you see her on the sidelines, she's fired up, and she's willing to build a championship roster to compete with the UConns or the St. John's or the Marquette to the Big East. And in what I've seen in that conversation was she wasn't backing down to tell us anything. She was straight to the point, and she was excited to get ready for next year and to add those additional transfers as well.
This is a good team. I think heading into next year, they have a real chance to be consistently in the top 25 with the returners coming back. Bosco, who has been in a walking boot for the last few weeks now. She was at the Bone Marrow Drive broadcast and saw her the other day. She was as well. So that could be something to monitor potentially, but haven't gotten any official news about that from the athletic department. So you would assume that she'll be good to go once the spring, or the end of the spring semester, obviously, but also the summer season and workouts begin to roll around. But a lot of good returnees. Steve, you brought up Kennedy Henry, who's just been really, really solid. Freshman year, so good defensively. She was really Villanova's best defender, and now she comes back not only defensively, but I think she can add a level to her game offensively, especially with Bosco, McCary, and company. So very, very exciting time for the women's basketball team. And in addition to the roster, how many returnees are coming back, also yesterday it was announced or confirmed the teams that would be in the Fort Myers tip-off on November 27th and the 28th during Feast Week. So 2 divisions, which there was some talk about kind of how teams are going to be broken down. And there's a lot of good non-conference games and opponents in these 8 teams, right? You have Villanova in the Island Division, along with Kansas State, NC State, and LSU. I mean, that's a really strong division. Probably Kansas State is the one kind of lone team in there the team should be able to win games against, but Villanova, LSU could very much be kind of that matchup in the Island Division. Shell Division, you have TCU, Indiana, Mississippi State, and Georgia Tech. So again, the 8 teams overall: LSU, NC State, Kansas State, Villanova in the Island Division, and then in the Shell Division, the 4 teams are TCU, Indiana, Mississippi State, and Georgia Tech. Ryan Fannon will be calling in a moment, but just your quick thoughts on the teams.
I think it'll be big for the women's team, especially since in the Big East Conference, you almost have to accept the fact every year that you're probably not going to win the regular season title because of UConn. You're probably not going to win the tournament title because of UConn. And outside of UConn, for Villanova, you have some decent teams like Creighton, Marquette. It's tough for them to pick up super quality wins. But so it really comes down to the non-conference portion. Can they take down maybe Kansas State, NC State, LSU, get some of those big wins to kind of bolster potential March resume?
Well, to put the harsh fact into reality, if you want to be the best, you want to beat the best. So for me to scrap those teams and just think about the location for a second, you go from Italy to Fort Myers in the span of a couple weeks. Now that's what a good schedule is conducted to be, because of all this travel. You want to learn how to base yourself off of travel and rest and all those things. But playing at the Hands in Fort Myers, been to that complex before. Saw UNC play Michigan State in the men's portion last year during Feast Week. that's just a great place to be. It attracts alumni. It attracts everybody to come down to Florida for Thanksgiving, and you want to put on a good show. And by all means, Kim Mulkey and TCU, Indiana on the other side. But Kim Mulkey, if Kim Mulkey's down there, it's going to be good basketball. So you want to be the best. You want to be the best. You got to beat the best. And Denise Dillon is putting this team in an opportunity to potentially shock the world. But it's not just about shocking the world. It's about having teams on your roster, on your schedule early, so that you know when to play them when it comes down to March and further down the line. To play this team in November is not going to be the same team that's going to be playing in March. So if you can get a lick of them early, it's going to be good to see how your team grows throughout the season.
Well, this should be a fun time coming up again on November 27th and 28th, Friday and Saturday. Maybe we'll do a little reunion down there in Florida, get together for the Fort Myers tip-off again at Suncoast Arena. And if you're interested in ticket packages, they'll be available starting Wednesday, May 20th for that matchup in less than 2 weeks. You can visit womensfortmyerstipoff.com. Obviously not sponsored, but just if you're interested in going down there, supporting the women's team, you can do that there. And should be good basketball. I mean, LSU obviously is the best team there in the tournament, but Villanova has some good opportunities to pick up some good non-conference wins there in Florida. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, Ryan Fannon joins the show. 30 minutes left to go here on Villanova Sports Talk. We'll be right back after this. Final segment of Villanova Sports Talk in our broadcasting career here on WXVU. David Szczepanski, Stephen Cain, Ryan Scanlon with you before we get to our final thoughts. Going to wrap up with our poll questions. As always, you can vote on my Twitter at WXVU David S. First poll question: which offseason edition are you most excited to watch this upcoming men's basketball season? We got Ryan Fannon's answer. Again, so thankful for Ryan to join the show and for his kind words. Just so thankful to him. He voted for Devin Royal. Steve, we'll start with you. Where do you fall here? Again, the options: Jake Fegan, Kwame Evans Jr., Darryl Buddy Simmons, or I did kind of put together Elijah Crawford, and Devin Royal in kind of one answer slot.
I'm curious what Jake Fegan brings, just because he's so prolific offensively. I think the key is going to be how he does in the offseason working on that defense. I could definitely see in the future there could be Jake Fegan games where Villanova struggles and Jake Fegan is the one guy that really shows out offensively and could kind of carry Villanova to some wins in whatever games, non-conference, Big East, maybe in the postseason if things end up going really well for Villanova, hopefully in 2027. I'll say Fegan. I think he really intrigues me.
For me, I think when you look at the leadership, I think I'll tie on to the other piece of it. But if you're transferring from Oregon, that pipeline between Villanova and Oregon is pretty strong with TJ Bamba going over there. Now Kwame Evans comes over to the main line. I think that big step between that 4 or 5 positions is going to take a little bit of great leadership, and I think Kwame Evans is going to take what Dana Altman over there, what he gave him. And Kwame Evans for me is going to be that one guy just to be within the cylinder. Going to be a huge defense to block destruction is going to be on the force next year. So for me, I think Kwame Evans.
Well, I think it's good that we all have different answers because I'm going to say Buddy Simmons. St. Bonaventure transfer. What I'm excited about him is just the scoring over the last few years. I think he brings in a ton of veteran experience for this Villanova team and roster. But I really think you can't go wrong with any of these options. I agree with you, Steve. Fegan, what he did at Cornell the last couple years, I think was truly amazing. I'm excited to see how that translates over to the Big East. Kwame Evans Jr. obviously has the track record, as to for Devin Royal. I think Darryl Buddy Simmons is just interesting because of how good he's played in the A-10 coming over to the Big East. And Elijah Crawford, Ryan Fannon obviously, spoke very highly of Crawford. I think the potential is there, Steve. I know we talked about it over the last couple of weeks. Just, the University of Illinois, Chicago, and the Big East here, Villanova, completely two different programs at two different trajectories. So I'm excited to see, how that kind of translates as the point guard. We'll see he's still young too as well. But I think it really shows you how good of a job that this coaching staff did with the transfer portal because we all brought up a different answer, and really for different reasons. 83% of the votes, though, coming in for Kwame Evans Jr. I think that's fair. I mean, he's going to be a really good player, and excited to see how that shapes out here at Villanova. Poll question 2, how many wins will Villanova football have next season? 10-12, 7-9, 3-6, or 0-2. It is a tough schedule for Villanova next year. I want to point that out there, not to sway anybody's votes, but it is a competitive schedule, and they're going to have to be very good to win some of these key games.
I think 10-12. I think Villanova wins 10. I do agree. I think that it'll be tough to follow up how great of a season it was this past year, but I think just the Patriot League schedule, I think it's safe to say when looking at just the CAA versus the Patriot League, I think Villanova will be well suited to deal with the transition. So I'll say 10 wins. I think they make the playoffs again. I don't know if they necessarily get a bye, but again, that didn't bother them this past year. So I think maybe another deep run is in store, we'll say.
Well, I think it's going to be 10-12, but I do think that a couple of games when they get a little confidence, that one game kind of slips up, and I think when you go on the road to Lafayette and it's a Halloween game, that's probably the one that's going to be the most circled as we get towards that. But playing about 4 straight weeks before that, and getting a bye week in between October 3rd and October 17th, I think that's what's going to suit them well. But again, the main focus is if you play back-to-back games against Lehigh and Lafayette at the top in the league, it won't seem as such of a threat, but it could be a type of game if you do beat a team like Lehigh. That next game against Lafayette is going to be one to be circled because you're going to be the most, off balance, I guess I would say, because coming off of a win over Lehigh, going straight on the road to Easton, it's going to be a prime time Halloween night, and they need to get the best for that. And then having Richmond on that schedule again seems like the blast from the past. So having a lot of these games, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them how they perform against Louisville. A couple games where you don't really seem like you're going to the Churchill Downs of the country, but playing Louisville is something that I have circled on my calendar for sure. Just because you're not playing those Temples or the Penn States of them all, you're looking at someone different, and Coach Brahm's doing a good job over there, and looking forward for us showcasing our talents on a Friday night, not a Saturday night. Be one of the first out of the whole thing, and then going home to Holy Cross will be another one later in the year to see the guys and seeing them perform in my new home state of Massachusetts. So it'd be a fun schedule, and then who else to not mention Georgetown? So Georgetown is going to be a nice rivalry connected there, both on the hard court and now the gridiron. So you can argue that this whole schedule is built together, but it's based off of relationships and now rivalries that are going to be continued.
Yeah, the geographic piece of it is huge. We've heard Coach Ferrante talk about it. Obviously, Ryan Fannon did a few moments ago as well. I'm going to go with 9 wins. I think that point of the schedule that Ryan just mentioned after the bye week between October 3rd and October 17th is just tough, right? You're on the road at Fordham, at home versus Lehigh, then on the road at Lafayette. You could argue Lehigh and Lafayette are the 2 best teams other than Villanova in the Patriot League. Then back at home against Richmond, who's always a tough team, on the road at Holy Cross. That is a really tough 5 weeks just with the schedule. The bye week comes before that, which probably should benefit them for that Lehigh matchup after the game against Fordham, but I think that's a tough schedule. Louisville, I think, is very competitive. I think there is a world where Villanova could steal that game. I think it might be a crazy win, obviously, to defeat an FBS opponent, but I think Villanova could at least keep that game competitive, and that's obviously a big part of it. And also, just to say, you start off the season against William and Mary. That's a tough game as well. That's not an easy game to win. William and Mary hasn't played all that consistent the last few years. Really, Villanova changed its season last year, as Ryan mentioned earlier, in the second half against William & Mary. This past year in the CAA, now both teams joining the Patriot League. I'll say 9 wins. I think they very much could get to 10, but I'll say 9. Very split in terms of the vote. 55% saying 10-12, the other 45% saying 7-9. Just 114 days until the season opener against William & Mary on August 29th. Well, that will do it for us here on Villanova Sports Talk. Obviously, just want to take a moment To thank all of our listeners for tuning in over the last 4 years to all of our coverage, especially here on Villanova Sports Talk every week. It's been a true pleasure to talk Villanova sports with you. We'll see exactly what happens next. As of right now, I intend to keep the show going heading into the fall semester. There will be a summer break, but I'll probably record some episodes. I would love to have you guys. We haven't talked too much about it yet, but I would love to have you guys on, and I think that it'll be something that I plan to continue heading into the fall year. Obviously, it would look different, not here on WXVU, but mainly on YouTube and on Spotify. But we'll talk about that off air. But just want to thank all of our listeners for the last 4 years. I'll go on a list here as well because I think there's so many people. I know I mentioned at the last football game a few months ago, but Nick Langan, our advisor, who really does a great job for us. He really is the glue that puts everything together on the tech side of things. In addition to that, just the everyday upkeep of a college radio station. We host about 40 weekly shows here on WXVU every semester, and it takes a lot of work. Really takes a village to make sure that every show goes on air so smoothly, and Nick does a great job of that. Also oversees our WXVU Health Department. Of course, Kat Coyle as well from our OSI side of things. Want to thank her for her dedication and commitment to WXVU over the last 4 years. In addition to that, just want to thank all of the Villanova Athletics media relations staff. Of course, Dean Kenefick, Mike Sheridan at the top of the list there for their support. Without them, we wouldn't have the access to call these games, wouldn't have the access to be able to talk to players, have the interviews that we've had here over the course of the show. So want to thank them, and most importantly, perhaps want to thank you guys for your help. And really, I know I posted the senior spotlights the last couple of weeks on our WXVU Instagram. Steve, really, I don't think that people genuinely know how much work Steve has put in, but behind the scenes, and in addition to that, of course, on air. Our freshman year, he led the pregame and the postgame shows here on WXVU, and really created a format that worked, and really created a format, I think, for the first time in a long time here on WXVU, where we had pregame and postgame coverage. And I know that those nights weren't probably all that fun for you, Steve, because you were sitting here in the studio, most likely listening to us or watching the game on the monitor here, and you weren't at the game. But I truly thank you for that. And then it's been great to work with you in the booth the last 3 years. But like I said, everything that goes on behind the scenes, Steve has had a major imprint on. So I just want people to know that as today's show and as the semester really wraps up, that none of my work would have been possible without Steve and really his support. And Ryan, same thing goes for you as well. Ryan is one of the most passionate people that I think I've ever seen about Villanova sports and Villanova athletics, and that's what it really takes. There are a lot of people that can talk about sports, but I think it really focuses on the passion, and Ryan brings that passion and energy to every broadcast. And similar to what I said about Steve, none of this would have been possible without you two guys. So I want to thank you both really from the bottom of my heart for the last 4 years. It's been a great ride.
Yeah, same to you, David. Again, echoing all that sentiment, just thanking everybody involved, Nick Lang and Kat Coyle, Marty Dickerson as well, helping us, on the tech side of things.
Absolutely.
Slowly improving the broadcast, right, adding, crowd mic effects, things like that over time. But again, it's been a really fun ride, and just for me personally, the progression, from, the pregame, postgame show, and then, kind of being a main broadcaster, especially these past 2 years, it's definitely been a really fun journey. It definitely does fly by. I think any younger people listening to this, it definitely time definitely does speed up, and it's crazy that we're already at this point. So, but again, a lot of ups and downs. I think it's been just a very fun journey, and of course just want to thank David as well, because
Thanks.
again, in terms of behind the scenes work, you're doing all the credential applications and kind of handling a lot of the logistics, in addition to being the lead play-by-play man, kind of being the head, and again kind of being the one, talking to Marty, figuring out how can we improve the broadcast. It's never idle. There's always something active. There's this desire to constantly improve. So just want to thank you for kind of instilling that belief system onto me and to Ryan as well. It's definitely been super fun, but crazy that it's all coming to an end. But the future WXVU is in great hands. I think too, it's really grown these past 4 years, and it's just been a pleasure to be a part of it. Pleasure to work with you, David, and of course Ryan as well.
For sure. It's been a great 3.5 years. I had to wait my turn under great leadership of Patrick Scanlon, but to David, to Steven, thank you for for the first broadcast to now. I feel that I can take all my talents to my next chapter, and I think it's all courage to you guys for believing in who I can be and who I am, and just being myself. Long nights of driving from Hamilton Station to long nights of hotel rooms in New York City. It was all these moments I can recapture or recount. They all make you for who we are, and I really, it's all credit to you guys for helping me become a better broadcaster, but a better man in the first place. And I really appreciate all our friendships away from the broadcast booth and the broadcast booth, because it truly is going to make me who I am as I make my next move to Merrimack College. And as I always say, Father Peter's going to be mad that I'm not coming back, but he's also going to be happy that I chose another Augustinian school to go forth into my passion of becoming what you are not yet. And I think that's what I'll carry on. And I really appreciate you guys for sticking with me for the last 4 years, and to many more. If it's not in this booth, somewhere else, but I know I can count on you guys for the future.
Well, thanks, Ryan. That really means a lot, and well said for all the kind words there. Thank you so much. And too, as Steve mentioned, of course, Marty Dickerson, none of this would have been possible without him as well, especially all the on-air stuff at Villanova Stadium. The reason why that sounds so good and everything goes well in terms of the crowd mic and just the broadcast as a whole, Marty is a huge part of that. Donated some of the equipment that we have as well from Marty, so I can't thank him enough. And also, too, of course, everybody from athletics. I know I mentioned media relations, and that's the thing when you meet so many people over the 4 years, you sometimes, you meet somebody, you're trying to make sure that you give credit to everybody. Of course, Ryan Fannon, who joined the show today, Whitey Rigsby, Steve Pannone, everybody in that wing of athletics, really want to thank them for their support. And two, really just wanted to conclude with giving some background on how the show kind of started. 3 years ago when I had become sports director, there's I'm just going to say a clause in the application where you have to do some sort of a sports show or sports segment. I know Pat, Ryan's brother, did the Sports Minute, and that was done for a long time. I wanted to start something a little bit different, started something a little bit focused more on Villanova sports rather than just overall sports, and that's how the show was really born. We've had so many great hosts over the segment. Of course, Steve predominantly with me on a lot of these Thursdays and Mondays and Tuesdays when it changes throughout the semester, but Ryan, and also to Dominic Ricchetti, who hosted with me for a long time, Mike Bisseri, our in-house lacrosse expert, and then of course all the broadcasting partners that we worked with. Of course, Pat, Dominic, Aubrey. I know I mentioned this at the end of the football broadcast a few months ago, but really just it takes a village, as I mentioned earlier, and the work that you guys do, the work that everybody does in our staff is just really incredible. So Nathan will be taking over, Nathan Mather, the new sports director. I'm really excited to see what Nathan does over the next year. I know that he has some big things in the works, and just as Ryan Fannon had mentioned, really just take pride in this radio station. I really do, and I think it's in great hands, as you had mentioned, Steve. So really just want to thank everybody again for tuning in. In terms of the show, like I said, I plan on continuing it in the fall. What that will look like, I haven't thought a ton about that yet with finals and stuff, but definitely plan on continuing it for as long as I can. Really just want to thank the community, our WXVU listeners, and everybody for tuning in. So that will do it for us here on Villanova Sports Talk. Again, want to thank everybody for tuning in over these last 4 years. For Ryan Scanlon, Stephen Cain, I'm David Szczepanski. Have a great rest of your day, Nova Nation. This has been Villanova Sports Talk. This has been 4 years here on WXVU. Have a great rest of your day. And as always, go Cats!